I'm 25 years old. I'm from the Tulsa, Oklahoma area, and I've been here at Teen Challenge for almost a full year. I'll be graduating the program in about a month. And I came from a really good family. My parents have been married for almost 30 years. I have 3 sisters who all have college degrees and have never dealt with the kinds of issues that I did growing up, and so it can be difficult, and I think there's a lot of people out there that can relate to that in a similar position where you're not from a rough background at all, and it can be hard on yourself. You can be hard on yourself trying to come to terms with feeling like you had all the chances that you wanted to do things right, and you have not really done that very successfully. And so it's kind of tough. Growing up, it started early. I was probably 14 when I first started drinking, just the same way most kids do that get into that, just to enjoy the feeling of having an altered state of consciousness, and carried over into smoking cigarettes and smoking weed and stealing grandma's pills out of the cabinet, which I think there's a lot of people that can know what that's like. And so it carried on into high school. I found some sense of insecurity pushing me towards wanting to isolate myself from any social pressures that I found going through 9th, 10th grade. And it was around that time that I more started smoking weed and taking any other kinds of prescription medications that friends would have, and it started causing a lot of problems by the time I was graduating high school into turning 18 to 20 years old. I went to Oral Roberts for a year, and I really didn't like it. I was still battling with drugs off and on that whole time, wanting to stay clean, but never really being able to for very long. I joined a band around that time. Playing music was something I really loved to do, and those guys even liked to drink alcohol and smoke weed occasionally for fun, but with me it always turned into something excessive quickly. It was never just recreational. It was always me wanting to see how wasted and crazy I could get, and that was not where my friends were at all. And so by the time I was 21, I got a DUI for the first time, and my parents had been doing everything they could to help me stay clean, and it was, no matter what they did, I was not interested in it at all. The peace or whatever, not the peace, but the release that I felt from doing drugs was all I felt like I wanted at the time. I was just kind of trapped in it, and I think a lot of addicts are that way. It's a delusion. Just deep down, they can't see things the way they really are. Your mind is so blocked by the chemicals and the dependency in your head and the feeling that you get whenever you don't have to face reality head on. It becomes a real trap, and it doesn't matter what kind of drug it is, and it doesn't even have to be drugs, but for me it definitely was. And after I got that DUI, my parents had an intervention of a kind. I remember with an aunt and an uncle, and both of my parents, and one of my sisters was there, and they told me that they weren't going to let me stay at the house anymore. They had tried everything they could, and that they found this program called Teen Challenge. It was the Oklahoma City plant there. This was about 5 years ago, and I didn't know what I thought about it at that time. So I went back home, and I was staying at a homeless shelter. I didn't have many friends that I felt like trying to call on to give me a couch to sleep on or anything, so I just stayed at a shelter there for about 3 weeks, trying to make up my mind if I wanted to go to this program, because I really liked the band that I was in. I didn't want to just leave the world and go do this program, but I needed to, because mainly because I didn't have anywhere to stay, and I wanted to try to make things right with my family. And so I went to Oklahoma City for 3 months to the Teen Challenge program there, and it helped me clear my head in some ways, but I still just had not been through the kinds of experiences that would help me see the drug lifestyle for what it really was. And so after 3 months, I talked my parents into letting me come home, more or less. And it was only about after a month of being home that I just went full on into doing drugs as hard as I ever had. Just like what happens with so many addicts when they relapse, they don't start over again. They just pick up exactly where they left off. And so I ended up going back to Teen Challenge about a week later, and I was there for about another 3 months, but I still was really stubborn inside. Didn't want to submit to the program, just wanted to figure it out myself. Didn't feel like I needed any of the help that anyone else had to offer. Just had a lot of ego and not very much humility. And so I was there for another 3 months before I ended up getting dismissed for using drugs in the program. And from the minute I left, I was really out there taking more drugs than ever, living literally on the street. I slept in a garden outside the library one night, I remember, and it started raining. And I rode off on a little racer scooter I had stolen from somewhere, and went off in the middle of the night that night, I remember. And it was I was out for a week from Teen Challenge before I got arrested. And it was, I think it was April 12th, 2013. I happened to be on my way to Walmart to go steal some things or something. I never had any money, of course. That's how addicts like to roll. And I saw a door to a big church open in my hometown, and I walked up there, and a guy came out and asked me if I needed help with something. This was in the middle of the day. I thought it was strange that there was a door open there. And I just told him I needed to use the bathroom. I didn't know what to say. I was nervous for a second, and so he pointed me off to where the bathroom was. And I went down in there, and I left one of the back doors unlocked, thinking that I would come back to that church later and see if there was anything worth me having for myself. And so I came back that night at about 9, having ingested more drugs that night than I ever did any other night in my life, actually. And the door was still unlocked, and so I went inside, and I found the sanctuary room, the main room where they had all the music instruments set up for the service the next morning. And I ended up spending something like 10 or probably about 10 hours in that church, just wandering around heavily inebriated, trying to corral all these instruments out the door into a place where I could come back with a friend who would have a car where I could just go sell them all or something. And I ended up, so I woke up, I stayed up all night that night, and rode off on my bike the next morning at about 6 in the morning or so, and went back towards where I could get on the internet and try to talk some friends into coming to help me pick this stuff up and bring it somewhere to sell it. And it wasn't until the next day that I was sitting inside the library using the computer there trying to get some friends to come and help me go sell that stuff that I saw a couple of cops walking up towards me. Somebody had seen me and knew that I was a suspect because I was wearing the same clothes. And some of these details are probably do everything. So they ended up arresting me for 4 different felony charges: burglary, grand larceny, a couple others. Took me to jail, and while I was in jail, I had a really probably one of the most profound experiences of my life, about a week into it, where I sobered up and just saw full on the really horrible depth of the person I'd become, and I had just let everyone down. My picture was on the front page of the newspaper for robbing a church, which was probably, I don't know, it was really degrading just knowing that, and knowing that everyone that knew my family knew that too. And so it was in that first week of being in jail that I started reading the Bible for the first time in a long time on my own, and it really hit home with me and resonated something in it that helped me see the person that I had become, and made me want to do whatever I had to do to not be that person again. And it definitely changed my life. I ended up spending about a year in jail, and then having probation sentenced for after that. And whenever I got out of jail, I did really well for about a year before I started having troubles come up again slowly that started just an avalanche of drug use again within a year. And it was as bad as ever, and there are so many close calls that I still don't understand how I got so lucky to not get several more serious drug charges and things like that. And I ended up getting arrested about a year ago from now for an eluding charge. I had been using drugs, of course, and was out driving late at night, and I woke up in jail. It was actually during this week 1 year ago that I woke up in jail and was more torn up emotionally than I ever have been in my life. And I just had lost everything again, and I woke up in a jail cell again, feeling the pain of being a total failure. And I knew at that time, I remember so vividly thinking that I'll do anything in the world that I have to do. I don't care what it is. I just don't want to be that person ever again. I don't care what I have to do. I don't want to be a thief. I don't want to be an addict. I don't want to let everyone down again. And so I talked to a friend who was a staff member here at Teen Challenge, and I quickly knew, like, if I could just get back to Teen Challenge, that was a place that I could take a whole year of my life and focus on what's really wrong with me deep inside, in my mind, in my heart, and get to work with the staff members that they have there to help and change the person that I was. And so I've been here for a year now, and with the help of some of the awesome staff members here, I've never felt as confident as I do about who I am and who I want to be, and how to go about being that person. And it's through all the education that we have, the education director and the interns and the way they help, and that you're able to look at your relationship with God and your relationship with your family and really face who you have been, the terrible person that you've been, and learn from them how to be the person that you want to be, and how to go about that, and how to immerse yourself in training yourself to deal with the struggles that you face here and the struggles that you're going to face outside of here, so that whenever you do go back to the world, you know exactly who you are, and you know exactly who you want to be. And so I couldn't be more thankful for this program and for the time that it's given me to really isolate myself from society and have a chance to start over and to be the person that I want to be, and to have the truth in my life and be able to pursue that. And it's just an amazing thing.
So how did your addiction affect your family?
Okay, let me think for a minute here. That's probably the worst part of the story in a way. My addiction really took a toll on my family. They're all some of the most caring people you could ever meet, and some of the most genuinely loving people you could ever know. And all of my sisters, who are all around the same age as me, watched me go tunneling down that hole of addiction. And my parents too, my mom and my dad, cared so much, did everything they could to keep me from doing things that were destroying my life. And the only thing I would do at the time was just lie to them and steal from them and do whatever I had to do to get high. It didn't matter I was so lost in it that it didn't matter what they wanted to do to help me. Nothing was going to help until I wanted it to, and I didn't want it to. Deep inside, I just wanted to get high. And it's something that you can see in addicts and former addicts, that mindset where deep inside something in them still feels like they're going to feel satisfied and fulfilled from what they're using, their escape from reality. And it was so devastating on me, more than anything, more than the personal stuff, more than all the legal troubles. Anything was the care and the love that my family had and that they put into trying to help me was not doing anything, that I hadn't accepted it, that I had not just not accepted it, but just completely thrown it away. I just didn't even care. And I think that's the thing, more than anything, that matters the most to a person, is having the love that comes from a close friend or a family member that can inspire them at the right time. There's no telling when it will be, but that's the strongest thing that a human being could feel, more than money, more than being free from the legal system, more than anything, is the love from one person to another, the self-sacrificial element of that love, that you are really cared for, and it doesn't matter who you are, that you're genuinely valuable as a human being. And that was the thing that has inspired me the most, without a doubt, to want to do whatever I can to help change my life, and to work with whoever is here as the staff at Teen Challenge to want to help change my life too. And so that's family stuff there, I guess.
So, what has been your biggest struggle over the past 13 months?
I gotta think about that. Well, I guess I think my biggest struggle in this past year here at Teen Challenge has been learning to accept myself and feel like I'm worth anything, really. As someone who comes from a great land of opportunity, being a middle-class American, it can be hard to feel like to accept yourself after having seen yourself throw everything away time and time again. And I think there's definitely a lot of people that's a core issue, is that they've had all the opportunity that they want to do the right thing, and they've never really done it. And I think that's probably the most helpful thing that has happened here, is that I've had people to talk to about that, and staff members and interns and whoever was there to listen at the time, about wanting to learn to accept myself and know that it doesn't matter what you've done, and it doesn't matter how many people you've lied to and stolen from, that can always change. And it doesn't matter if you're 20 or if you're 50. There's always a chance to turn that around and create a new history and be that new creation that you want to be. And that's been the greatest thing for me here, is learning to accept that it doesn't matter. I'm only 25 years old, and it doesn't matter if you're 50 and you have kids or whatever. There's always, all that you have is right now. The past is just a conception in your mind that doesn't even mean anything. You can always take right now what you have and start over with it. And that's been the greatest thing for me here, is knowing that all of that is history and that I still have a life ahead of me to live, and that I want to do that in the best way that I can.
Okay. What was that pull? You talked about, you always, despite how long you've been clean, or been in the program, you went back. What was that was taking you back?
I think the thing that always ended up pulling me back into drugs and that sort of life earlier on was what in the Bible it's talked about as your flesh, and there's a lot in a lot of philosophy it's talked about as your ego, and it's that part of yourself that is all about putting me ahead of anyone else, and my selfish desire and my want to just feel good and feel like I don't have to face anything difficult in life. And knowing that I had that escape from reality was the thing that kept pulling me towards it. And it also tied into me just not caring about myself or wanting to accept myself or feeling that I'm worth accepting myself. And the more I hid from that desire, the easier it was to just gravitate towards drugs and anything else that would help me hide it. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people in this similar position too, is they don't want to have to face that, and they know that they can hide from it when they use drugs, that their mind is not even capable of dealing with that stuff a lot of the time.
You have a sister? Three sisters. How has your addiction affected them? Has it influenced them in any way, or?
I don't know that it really has, honestly. I mean, it just tore them up emotionally to watch, but
right.
I mean, they went on with their lives, like it didn't really.
So how'd you get started doing drugs?
You mean like detail or like in general?
Yes, in general, a little bit of detail.
Let me think. Oh man, I just thought of that one time. The first time I found that sense of acceptance into a group of people with drugs, I was about 15, and I remember vividly being out in the country and doing cocaine with them and feeling that acceptance within that group of people that I was looking for. And I remember specifically thinking, I don't care what kind of drug comes my way. It sounds like a made-up story, but I remember thinking, I don't care what kind of drug comes my way. I'll just do it, because this is what I'm looking for, is people to want to be around me and want to be part of that group of people, want to fit in with the right group. And that was what opened that door to the prescription pills and smoking weed and alcohol and everything else that happened to come along my path early in my teenage years, and that was what ended up driving me more and more into it, to where I was just fully depending on it just to feel any sense of not even happiness, but just to not feel angry and depressed all the time. I just had to have it.
So how have you come to accept yourself? That seems the biggest thing. Why was it hard for you to accept yourself?
Okay, I think this part's a little more individualized, but I mean, I don't know. Just because not everyone would be able to relate to it, I'll just say I think the hardest thing about me personally being able to accept myself was being able to learn to be okay with having ruined a lot of opportunity that I had early on to be able to get a free degree in whatever field I wanted and to have a clean record. Those are things. I don't have a clean record, and I don't have anything to show in my life to this point at age 25 other than a lot of bad experiences and some felonies on paper, which is not really the type of career start that you want to have. And but the way that I've learned to accept my past and accept the person that I was is by knowing that people can genuinely change, and that I can genuinely change, and that I can not just change, but I don't have to be, I can be a different person. I can be that new creation that is talked about in the Bible, that I can have my whole mind and emotions renewed in a way that frees me from all that, to where I can look at it and accept that that's who I used to be, but that it's not even a part of who I am now, that my history in some sense makes up who I am now, but that it's not who I am. And to be freed from that is the biggest thing in learning to accept that it doesn't matter where I'm at or where anyone is at, that you can literally start over, and doesn't matter what's happened before, you can always be a new person where you're at and be the person that you want to be if you learn to accept that part of yourself. If you don't accept it and call it for what it is, no matter how dark it is, you'll never be able to move past it. It'll always be nagging at you and wanting to pull you back towards it somehow. It's a really difficult thing for learning to come to terms with that and accept it. And for me, it manifests a lot in learning to, or at least trying to get over my own ego and my own pride, and learning to accept that I'm not any more special than anybody in the world, that we're all on an equal field, and that nothing I want is more valuable than something that anyone else wants. And that's something that, I imagine I'll deal with the rest of my life, and that everyone will, that nobody just perfects that part of their life and goes to the next thing. It's just learning to care about others as much or more than yourself is one of the biggest things in accepting yourself, and in learning to move forward and having the confidence to move forward without feeling like you're going to fail.
So were you core to the Teen Challenge?
No, not technically, no.
So how have you seen your changes that have happened through Teen Challenge impact your mom or your dad and your sisters? Like, can they see that definite change in you?
Yeah. I don't know. That one's a little. I don't know if there's anything like particularly profound about that I know directly. I mean, I know that basically they can live their life without that intense worry that their son's gonna end up in jail, or worse, their son's gonna end up in prison or overdosing on drugs or something. That's happened so many times in friends' lives over and over, and that's one of the biggest inspirations to me, is knowing that my siblings and my parents and my cousins, aunts and uncles that I'm close with all know that I'm alright, because there was a time in my life where that was not the case. They knew that I was not alright. Whenever they know that you're not alright, that tends to just lower your self-image even more, and you just keep hiding from facing your problems and facing your fears, and not being able to even begin to.
Good. I know, I need to get a clapboard.
Yeah. There was one at the thrift store a while back, one of those real ones. They would smash your finger.
Yeah.
Since coming to Teen Challenge, I've been able to start on that process of learning to be okay with yourself and to accept your past and accept your history as a part of who you are, but able to build up the confidence that it's not only who you are and that you're able to move past it and start over in your life and carry on with being the person that you want to be deep down inside and that you feel inspired to be, and learning to care about others around you and face the challenges that are going to come at you in life with confidence and with a vision in mind of who you are and where you want to be and who you want to be. And
Okay. Along.
I think the biggest scripture that's inspired me over the years would be in 2 Corinthians, where it says, if any man is in Christ, he's a new creation. And that was the first verse that really resonated with me as an adult, that made me see the truth that if I learn to want to be, and if I decide to be, and if I act on wanting to be, that I can become the new person that deep down I want to be, that I don't have to just be the sum of my failures, that is a person that I used to be, but that it's not who I am inside anymore, and it's not, I don't have anything to do with that anymore, that it's has no influence on who I am now, and that I'm able to move past that and be the person that I want to be.
So when you were in the church, and we'll go over that part, because we're gonna hit this like we have just did, and then okay, that's up.